I'm not going to say much about the weather other than it's 16 centigrade, which is 60 Fahrenheit. I tell you why I'm not going to say much. It is lashing with rain, and it has been, all night. Yesterday, we went to Amberley Museum. First time in weeks, and the weather was wonderful. They did say thunder and lightning, lashing rain, all day long. We thought, well, we'll risk it. The sun's out. Off we went, and it was hot. It really was too hot. We're taking our jackets off when we were there. Wonderful. We had a coffee and a good walk round. I did a bit of a recording while I was there, so I shall bore you with that in a minute. Hope you enjoy that. But what a wonderful day yesterday, and torrential rain today. There's thunder around. I've heard thunder already. Crashing around. I haven't seen lightning. It's now midday. And as I say, it rained all night, and it's going to rain all day today, and I believe tonight. What tomorrow will bring, I've no idea. Tomorrow is Friday, by the way. How are you? Hope you're keeping well. Thank you for all your emails and messages and various other things. I hope the weather's nice where you are, certainly better than we've got here. I mowed the lawn yesterday when we got back from Amberley because I knew this weather was coming in. Well, they said it was coming in, but you know how they lie. I sorted out various other jobs in the garden. Make hay while the sun shines, they say, and it was shining. So I made hay. Anyway, let's move on. Do you want to hear this Amberley thing first? And then what's this episode about? Oh, yes, stories from the past. A lot of you, I know, like listening to stories from the early days, 1950s, 1960s. I can't tell you stories from before the 50s because I wasn't here. That reminds me of my nephew. He said to his parents once, "Where was I before I was born?" Now there we. Oh, that'll get my son going. My North Carolina son. Hello, hope you're well. Hope the girls are all okay. He's going to contact me now. I'll have a call, not a phone call. What is it we do? I don't know. Some video or whatever it is. There are so many platforms, I forget what's what. No doubt he'll call me and say, "I'll tell you where you were before you were born." I shall look forward to that. Okay, let's go to Amberley, shall we? Let's go to Amberley Museum and have a mooch about there. We're down in the little, Greenwood Village. And there's the Amberley Bodger. He makes chairs, spindles and bowls. There's a pole lathe for sale here, traditional style pole lathe, brought to this country by the Saxons. And there's one here for sale, a new one, £140. It's the type with the treadle, you go up and down on the treadle and the wood spins round and you can carve it up. There's a stonemason over there, which is interesting. What's this chap make here? He makes rakes and gate hurdles. Hear him tapping away, going up the hill now. It's lovely here, but it's a beautiful day. We've got the birds singing. And I'm in my favourite place now, walking up the hill. I'm in the woods. There's Trisha up there taking a close-up picture of something on the ground. Probably a beetle or something. It's quite a steep hill, this. Good exercise, though. No wind, birds singing, blue sky. Oh, there's blackberries here. Who went blackberry picking when they were young? I certainly did. I'm going to eat one. If I can reach across and grab one of these. Well, that tastes good. Just what we did when we were kids. Well, that tastes really nice. Over the woods, eating blackberries. Absolutely lovely here. Right, I shall plod off up the hill and see what else I can find. Can you hear that aeroplane? I'm looking up through the trees. That's an aeroplane pulling a glider up. It's still pulling him, towing him up there. I should have bought my aircraft radio. I could chat to them. We're not allowed to do that. Pull the glider up, let him go, and then they climb up on the thermals, don't they? The heat rising up. Oh, that's good. I'm glad I saw him. Walking further through the woods. I know I'm always banging on about the woods. You'd expect nothing less from me, would you? And you know what I'm going to say? I'd like to live here. A log cabin in the woods. There's Trisha. There's the railway line. And she's on the bridge over the railway line. I shall follow her up there. This is the little railway that goes round the sort of perimeter of Amberley. Well, not all the way round. I don't think it's running today. Can you hear the birds singing? Trish is now taking a photo of me talking to you. There were a load of toddlers down where you come into the place, kind of 2-year-olds, hundreds of them, thousands, well, probably a group of 20 or more, but they're all lovely, having a look round, enjoying their day. Of course, the schools are open, so it's not packed with school children as it often is during the school holidays. Right, I shall walk on. I said the train isn't working today, but listen, sounds like a diesel engine. They're not running the steam today, which is a shame. Can you hear that? It's climbing up the hill. If I walk down here a bit, I can hide in the bushes. Then I won't have to wave to the driver. Trish is videoing the train up on the bridge there. Here it comes. Yes, a diesel. Full of children all waving at me, so I had to wave back. There it goes through the woods up to the very top, which is where we're going now. The sun is really hot. Oh, here comes another glider. Fantastic. The sun is really hot. It's the 4th of, where are we, September. It really is hot for this time of year. There's the plane getting higher and higher. I should have brought my radio. I could have listened to them, because no doubt they're chatting to each other. It's saying, I'm going to let you go now. No, not yet. We're not high enough. Oh, too late. Oh, this is lovely. There's old railway lines here. This is where the trains, not the little train, the mainline trains would have come in to Amberley. They've got some trucks here, like coal trucks. Pepper and Son written on one of the trucks. They would have come in here to pick up the lime once they'd made it in those huge lime kilns they've got. Oh, look, butterflies, bees, all on these wildflowers. That's rather nice. The railway line's still here, the track, and there are some trucks. In fact, Trish's dad used to drive a steam engine into here and get all the trucks loaded up with the lime, and he'd drive it off to wherever. So he knows this place. He's passed away now, sadly, but he knew this place well. And he's told us many stories about when he drove the engine in here. It's all chalk here. It is, well, obviously a chalk pit. I'm just looking at a small cliff here that's all broken away. There's some soil on top, of course, because there are trees and things growing. In fact, here you can see the roots of the trees where the chalk has broken away. There's all the roots hanging down. That tree looks like it's going to fall. It really is warm. There's a pond here. This is a new pond that they put in some years ago. And it is, sadly, it's just full of plants and moss. There's nothing in there. There's another pond here. Warning, deep water. This has fish in it. Lots of lilies. Oh, there's a got a goldfish. So we're now going to walk back up the hill. Where are we? There's the kilns. We're going to walk back up the hill and see what I can hear an engine. See what's going on up there. We have here Spooner and Gordon, coach and cart wheelwright. J. Penfold, jobbing smith. E. J. Brown and Son, bakers and confection. Seagrave, pastry cook and confectioner, baker. All sorts of trades. The wheelwright is interesting. How they made the wheels, the wooden spokes, the metal rim. The trouble is you have to be a little bit careful because wherever you go there are volunteers. Bless their cotton socks, they're doing their best, answering questions and telling people what's what. But as soon as they see me, oh, good morning, well now this is this, let me show you this. Let me tell you about that. Just walking up the hill now. I do seem to be a sort of magnet for volunteers. Right, we're heading up to the Electricity Museum now, which is one of my favourite places. There's hawthorns here, rosehip. These are rosehips, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you remember rosehip syrup?
Yeah, I used to have that as a child.
Yes, I did. It was lovely. Elderberry, make elderberry wine. Stinging nettles, it could make nettle wine.
There seems to be a theme going on there.
Yeah. What, alcohol?
Yeah, wine.
Let's plod on. We've just walked into an old barn where there's some fantastic engines. There's a huge engine here, Robbie or Roby lubricator schematic, there we are. Oh, hang on, Trish is pointing out something else. Oil engine, 1929, originally stood in the Harwood Road Council Road depot at Littlehampton. It pumped the town's sewerage up from the sewers into the sea. Oh, nothing's changed then since 1929. We still pump sewerage into the sea. Horizontal single-cylinder engine, started using compressed air. They don't often have this running. Roby and Company Limited, Lincoln, England. We've only seen this running a few times, haven't we? It's a lovely engine. That would fit on our patio, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't fit. I'm sure it would.
No, it wouldn't.
There are some smaller ones over here. What's this? Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. Petter 2-stroke engine. Lion A-type. Bamford. Now, here we are. Mine's a Lister. Here's a Lister engine. The one I've got is a Lister, but it's not in here, is it? They haven't got my model, the Lister D. Coming back up the hill. Hear those birds? I think that's the toddlers over there in the woods, jumping up and down as they do. Here comes the train. Trish has gone to buy a cold drink. Now walking back down the hill. I think we'll probably start to head off home soon. Lovely hearing those birds, isn't it? And there's a glider climbing up on the thermals, going round and round slowly, getting higher and higher. And here comes Tricia with a cold drink. We're now in the fire station, and there's a video of fire engine racing along the road. We're going to now look at the old fire engine. Look at that, Borough of Hove. Hove, actually.
I think that one's a little bit before my time.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
What is it? It's from, does it say here? 1937, 1941.
A little bit before our time. Now that one there, I remember seeing those drive about.
Oh, the old Dennis ones, yeah.
Dennis.
Oh, I used to see them an awful lot.
Because you lived round the corner from the fire station.
Yeah, there was one about 100 yards up the road from us. And it was manned by a lot of volunteers. And you'd hear the siren go, because obviously they didn't phone them or anything. The siren would go, and you'd suddenly have these people running from all different directions,
oh, yes.
bikes and cars hurtling up the road as they all went to the station to get into the fire engine and head out.
What's this? Bedford, look at this.
Yeah, I don't remember these. It could be wouldn't be a green goddess, would it? It's big.
Oh, it could be, yes. Bedford, made in England, it says. Nothing's made in England now. That might be a green goddess, actually.
The army ones they drag in when the firemen are on strike.
Right, let's move on. Trish has gone into the bric-a-brac shop where they sell rubbish. I mean bits and pieces. I'm just sitting out here watching people walk by. People watching. Here comes a volunteer. Goodness me, there are more volunteers than there are punters. Oh dear, here she comes. Hang on a minute. Oh, here comes another one. Honestly, I'm surrounded by volunteers. Trish said, pretend you're on your phone and they won't speak to you. Actually, that's an idea, isn't it? Right, I think I'm safe now. It's been a lovely day here. Well, a lovely morning. If ever you're down in West Sussex, have a look at Amberley Museum. I know I've been saying this. How long have I been doing podcasts now? 5.5 years. 5.5 years I've been saying to you, go to Amberley. And a lot of you live in Australia, America, South America, all over the world, all over Europe. So you can't exactly pop in, can you, to Amberley in the UK? It would take you a while to get here and cost a lot of money. But if ever you are down this way, have a look. Here comes the bus again, the coach. I was just thinking, so much of the stuff here from the 1950s, I remember, of course. I remember it as a kid. The various vehicles, the old vehicles on the streets as let the bus go by. All the old machinery for road making. There's a road making place here where they've got lots of machinery from old steam rollers, diesel rollers, which I remember. Here comes another volunteer, Struth. How many are there? So it's really interesting for someone of my age to look around Amberley Museum. Tricia's just popped out of the shop. She's found a book. It's only £1. Sussex, 100 years ago, with a load of photographs. So that might be interesting. Look out, here come a gaggle of toddlers. Look at them. They're no more than, 18 months? 2 years old. Some are in pushchairs. There's some ladies trying to keep them under control. They've got pushchairs loaded with bits and pieces. Bottles of milk, no doubt, nappies, all sorts of baby wipes and all the palaver that goes with babies and youngsters, toddlers, when you take them out. That's it for today. We're going to head off home and have some lunch. Probably have lunch in the garden or the patio. Don't you know, as one does. What? Right, I shall return you from the outside broadcast unit. I shall return you to the studio. We only spent a few hours there, but it was really nice. Talking to the volunteers, they do seem to follow me around. I went into the toilet and there was one in there, a volunteer. I don't know what he was doing. He started talking to me. So I had to hurry up and then escape. I'm going to put some photos on the website, rants.info. I'm not going to fill it with photos of Amberley because there'll be too many. But I will put a few on there just so you can have a look. I like the old trades there, the wheelwright and the various other trades they've got. There's a cycle shop there where the chap repairs cycles, bicycles, straightens wheels, adjusts the spokes, to get the wheels straight. All interesting stuff. I did chat to him once a few weeks ago. I think I mentioned that actually. A few months back, was it? And he told me how to straighten a buckled wheel. He had it on a sort of jig thing, spin it round and you adjust each spoke until the wheel is straight. That was quite interesting. The gliders, there's is it Storrington Gliding Club or something, very close to the museum. And they're always taking off in the nice weather, being pulled up by the aeroplanes. And I always forget to take my radio. I can listen. I've got their, the glider frequencies that I can have a listen on. I can just about hear them from here. Anyway, you don't want to know about that, do you? I seem to have lost one of the recordings I did. I was talking about, in the Electricity Museum. We went in there and I was chased by a lady who was a volunteer. And she was trying to say, oh, look, I'll show you. Have you seen this? Have you been here before? Yes, I've been here hundreds of times. I bet you haven't seen this. Look at this here. Did I tell you about the time? I can't remember whether I've told you. I think we were on the Isle of Wight somewhere at a bus. Did I mention that? A bus museum place. And this chap, he was determined to come and speak to me. And I ducked down. And I'm looking through, I think I told you last Wednesday, I'm looking through these windows of the buses and I saw him looking around. Then he walked around. I nipped into one of the buses and hid. It was like hide and seek. It was awful. And there was a chap at Amberley Museum the other day, another volunteer in the radio type room where they've got all amateur radio stuff, old tellies from the 50s and 60s. The chap there started talking to me and we were just leaving. I've been there hundreds of times. And he started going on and on. Oh, dear. Anyway, there we are. I escaped. But I think in future, Tricia's idea was brilliant. Just walk round with my mobile phone and say, yes, oh, OK, yeah, probably see you tonight then. That'd be lovely. Oh, no, I didn't know about that. Tell me all about that. And they'll leave me alone. They'll think, oh, he's on the phone. I bet they'll still follow me, though, hoping that I'll finish my phone call. Then they can get me. By the way, it's now Friday and it's lashing with rain. It has been all night. And according to the forecast, it will be for most of today. There was thunder in the night. I lay there in bed looking at the ceiling, waiting for the storm to get closer. But it didn't. I was hoping that we'd have some decent lightning and really loud thunder that shook the house so I could record it and let you hear it. But the storm kind of veered away from us, which is probably a good thing, actually. Talking of Amberley in the woods reminds me of when I was, 12, early teen, something like that. I used to cycle up to the woods at Washington. That's just north of where we are, only a few miles. I'd cycle up there. Cycled everywhere back then. Cycled to Arundel, which is a long way. And what I did was I took a sort of rucksack thing with me, climbed up this tree. There was just this one tree, and there were a load of telephone wires going through the tree. And what I did, I took this telephone with me. I don't know whether I told you this before. It's old age. If I'm getting repetitive, put it down to old age. I'd sit up in this tree. It wasn't very high up because I don't like heights. And I had two like crocodile or alligator clips, and I clipped them onto the phone wires, and I could hear people talking. And I could also talk to them, I discovered. So that was an interesting pastime for the weekend. Pop up there, climb up the tree. I had a little spot up there which was just my place. And I even took a cushion once and I tied it to the branch that I used to sit on, so I had a nice comfortable seat. And I'd sit there with my telephone listening to people's conversations. Probably totally illegal. Well, it was. If anyone knocks on the door and says, right, you're nicked. No, it weren't me, governor. It weren't me. That was great fun, though. Again, that was all part of my hobby. I'd see all these phone lines going across the countryside along the railway. Do you remember that? Hundreds of phone wires going along the railway. And when you're in the train looking out of the window, as each pole goes by, the wires would dip, so they go down and up and then down and up and down and up. Fascinated me, all that sort of thing. So there's me wandering around the woods with my phone, tapping the phone. And I actually spoke to people. And they'd say, I think we've got a cross line. And I said, hello, where are you? I'm in Shrewsbury Nest. Where are you? Oh, yeah, I'm in London. Yeah, I think we've got a cross line. Of course, it was hilarious. I shouldn't be telling you that. I'm inciting, what am I doing? Inciting criminal activity. In the 50s, of course, when I was a child, well, I say child, when I got to 10, what was it then? 1961, I was 10. It was not that long after the war. And as I've said before, there were air raid shelters everywhere to explore. It really was fantastic. Over at Shoreham Airport, they had a rifle range. There was a big brick wall. It wasn't in use. It had been in use during the war years. It was just kind of derelict. Basically, it was just a huge brick wall, a load of sand, and that was it. The exciting thing was dig around in the sand and you could find the shells where they'd been shooting at the brick wall. And I used to collect hundreds of those in the sand. That was good fun. There were a lot of things left over like that from the war. Up in the woods, you'd find all sorts of things. I remember up at Washington again, where I used to tap the phone wires, there was a big wooden propeller against this barn. The farmer or whoever had obviously found a crash plane or something and nicked the wooden propeller and kept it. I don't know whether you're allowed to keep things like that. I remember looking at that. That was fascinating. You'd find all sorts of bits and pieces. It was great back then, exploring the woods, the countryside, not just for wildlife and all that sort of thing, but bits and pieces left over from the war. We found a parachute in a tree once, deep in the woods. Fortunately, there was no one hanging off the end of it, but it was a parachute, and we tried to get it down and we couldn't. Next time we went back there, it had gone, so someone had obviously found it and taken it home. All sorts of things, though, to explore. And down on the beach, I remember going down there and finding glass, about 6-inch diameter glass balls, green glass balls. And what they were, according to my grandfather, who I was down there with once, they were fishing net floats. Glass, can you imagine? I suppose they didn't have plastic. This was the 50s. Did they have plastic? No, they had Bakelite, didn't they? These glass, they were lovely. People used to collect them. You'd find them on the beach. Some of them were very, very battered from being in the sea and scraping around on the stones and things like that. But I had quite a few that I took home. All sorts of things used to wash up on the beach. Driftwood that people took home, of course, dried it out, and they used that on their fires. There's nothing to explore. Trish and I, when we go to the Isle of Wight, when we stay in that cabin place in the woods, that's on the north side of the island, we go down to the beach there, and there's nothing there. All you find on the beach, old Coca-Cola cans and bits of plastic rubbish, nothing of interest anymore. There was a shipwreck, or I don't know whether it wrecked, but all its cargo fell off. That happens with these big container ships sometimes, doesn't it? But anyway, this was wood, and the whole lot washed up on the beach here. Of course, everyone piled down to the beach, and they're stealing the wood. And it was stealing. You're not allowed to do that. People are going home with all this wood on top of their roof racks on their cars and filling up vans and things with this wood. It was lovely. Beautiful planks and like joists or rafters, beams or whatever they're called. I went down there and I wanted to get some for myself. I forget which year this was. Anyone living down this way, you'll probably remember that. I wanted to take some wood home myself, but there were some policemen there looking around, and this is a day or two after it had happened. And I think in the end it was all collected up by whoever, the authorities or something, and that was the end of that. And there are other things that wash up, aren't there? Containers that wash up on the beach, and people open them, and in there are brand new motorbikes and all sorts of stuff like that. And you're not allowed to steal them, because it is stealing. I've never come across a container on the beach. We've had chemical things. You get a local warning, don't go to the beach, there's some yellow canisters being washed up. It's dangerous, it's toxic. You don't find fishing nets, bits of nylon string and rope and fishing line that used to be washed up a lot on the beach. And very often you'd find dead fish in them. They got caught up in the line and they couldn't escape, so they died, which was a shame. Don't see that so much now. And of course, back in the 50s, one big disaster on the beach was tar, where the ships, the oil tankers, would wash out their tanks with seawater, and all this thick, like crude oil would wash up on the beach and turn into tar. Bitumen, like they do the roads with. And you had to be careful where you decided to plonk your blanket down and your picnic and have a sit down, because there's tar all over the place, clinging to the stones. And of course you'd find dead fish, dead birds, stuff like that. That doesn't happen so much now. All we pump into the sea now is sewerage, as I said earlier. No, it's not funny, it's awful. There was a news item on the telly the other day. They showed this sort of outflow pipe pouring out into the sea. It's meant to be just sort of clean water, rainwater or whatever. And it's brown and it is just flooding. Oh, it was awful. They put notices up, don't swim here, dangerous. Oh, I don't know. In this day and age, can you believe it? In this day and age, Victorian times, yes. You'd think, well, fair enough, they pumped the sewerage into the sea, but not now. Actually, I think it was before Victorian times when they did the London sewer sort of network of tunnels. Miles and miles of tunnels. There was a documentary about that. Fantastic. All brickwork in these tunnels. All the brickwork hundreds of years ago or whatever. Is it hundreds? I don't know. 1800 and something or other. And they're still in use today. They're still in use. Well over 100 years later. Probably 150 years. Isn't that amazing? The stuff they built back then is still going now. Well, like houses. As I was saying a week or two ago, our house is just over 100 years old now. And it's still standing. No problems. Well, you have little problems, of course, here and there. But the new houses, I can't see any new houses still standing 100 years from now. Stone the crows. They would have all gone. I know someone, mentioning no names, they bought a new house. Nothing but problems. They've only been there a few years. Already the central heating boiler in there has been condemned. They've had half the banister rail fall down. They've had problem after problem. Leaks in the showers, leaking through ceiling to downstairs. They had to have the gas pipe redone. They've had to have the electricity rerouted. That was all wrong. They've had to have a new mains power cable in from the street and all that business. It's hopeless. It's all this shortcuts, isn't it? Let's do it on the cheap. The electricity cable in our road is probably dates back to the 1940s from what I've discovered. I haven't looked into it. I'm not that much of a nerd. I haven't been down the library and been online trying to find out when electricity was installed in these houses. We had gas lighting here because in one of the rooms upstairs I lifted the floorboards to do some wiring, and there's the gas pipes for the lighting, only thin metal gas pipe. Is it cast? But I left it there because I thought it was rather nice. And they went down to downstairs where there would have been the lighting in the rooms downstairs. Quite interesting that. So our house here originally didn't have electricity. This was built in, I think, 1922. I don't know when electricity came into this street. So they had gas lighting. Imagine that. Having to light, your mantle, was it? They called the mantle, wasn't it? And you light that with a match or something, turn the gas up. The heating was coal fires. We've got 4 fireplaces here. 2 of the bedrooms, dining room and lounge, 4 fireplaces. We've only got one going. I'm not allowed to have the one in the bedroom going. That would be nice. Every winter we're in bed, I say, wouldn't it be nice to have the flames reflecting, flickering on the walls, the fire just putting out some heat, crackling a little bit? Wouldn't it be lovely? No, it wouldn't. Bit like the big engine we saw at Amberley. That would fit on the patio. No, it wouldn't. Yes, dear. No, dear. We haven't heard the dustmen for a while, have we? There we are. There's a treat for you. The dustmen have arrived. There goes all our rubbish. Right, enough of that. Crikey, that's loud. They've gone now. Haven't heard the dustman for ages. They used to wait, didn't they, down the end of the road? They'd think he's doing his podcast recording now. Right, come on, lads, let's go. Let's rev up the dust cart and annoy him. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they knew. They waited. They must have had a spy somewhere looking at me. Talking of air raid shelters in the woods, as we were earlier, a friend of mine, he lived in an air raid shelter not far from me. 5-minute walk from where I am here, 10-minute walk perhaps. It was built in the garden of quite a large house. They obviously built it during the war. It was above ground, this big air raid shelter thing. The walls were, at least 2 feet thick? What's that, over half a metre thick. The ceiling was a huge thing of concrete. That must have been getting on for half a metre, no, more than half a metre thick. And it had square windows and a doorway, and someone had converted it into, well, not a house, but a dwelling place. And this friend of mine bought it, and he called it Dun Bombing. Dun Bombing. I went in there loads of times. It was fantastic. It had all been done up. The ceiling was fairly low. Well, I say the ceiling, this huge concrete block. It was pretty big. I don't know what sort of size it was. It must have been at least 30 feet by 20. It was a huge thing. And it had a bit of garden all round it and a little driveway for your car. It was fantastic. What a place to live. It had all been done properly. There was a proper toilet and kitchen, bedroom, lounge. And on top, what he did on top, there were steps going up, concrete steps to the roof. What he did up there, he grew a load of vegetables. No, not on the concrete. He obviously had boxes full of soil. No need to worry about the weight on the roof. The thick concrete, you could have parked a bus on it. And up the top there, he had runner beans and tomato plants. He put like a fence around the outside of it all on top. And that was a patio area as well. You could sit up there in deck chairs in the summer, sunbathing. It was fantastic. And eventually he had a bit built on the side, which extended the kind of 30-foot side out to about another 12 feet. And that was a modern kitchen, I believe, and a modern a bathroom, whatever it was. That was a fascinating place. It's probably still there. Actually, I must have a look. Next time I'm out and about in the car, I'll have a look, see whether it will be still there, won't it? A neighbour of mine decades ago, he had an air raid shelter in his back garden. And what he had done is put electricity down there, lighting and all that stuff. And that was his wine cellar. Of course, it was nice and cool down there, even in the summer. I went down there a couple of times, racks and racks of wine. I think he must have been alcoholic. He had racks and racks of wine. Wonderful place. It's still lashing with rain out there. It's awful. Oh, talking of rain and storms, daughter number one and her hubby, they've gone down to Spain. They've gone down to Barcelona they're back today, I think. They went Monday. They're back today, Friday. And they've had rain. It's not funny. It is, actually. They've had rain and massive thunderstorms, which is what I wanted here. They got the storms and we didn't. My hairdresser once said to me that he went to Spain for 2 weeks. Lovely summer here. He went there for 2 weeks. It rained every single day down in the south of Spain, and it stopped on the day they were going home. He said they woke up, no rain at all, headed to the airport, brilliant sunshine, and came home and it was raining here. It's just luck, isn't it? It's just luck. But our weather forecast, as you know, I'm always harping on about the weather forecast. It has now got silly, really silly. On one site it says rain all day. On another site it says sun all day. They are all contradicting each other. I think there should be a law. They should bring out a law which says there's one weather forecast. Different radio and TV stations can share it, but there's one forecast from, say, the Met Office. Something dinged then, I don't know what. Because we've got all the different forecasts. They're not forecasts, are they? They're guessing. They say, oh, it's going to rain. An hour later, no, cancel that. It's going to be sunshine. I've got to check this dinging phone. We didn't have dings in the old days. Let me see, what is it? It's Tricia, now heading home. She's down the town. When she when she left, I said, I'll drive you down there. No, 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 I'll walk. She likes walking. When she left, no rain at all. It was lovely. It had stopped. It only stopped for a few minutes, so once she was well on her way to town, it started lashing down again. She's got all the proper wet weather gear on, so she should be okay. I've put some pictures on the website now of Amberley Museum. Only, six photos. You don't want a load of boring pictures. There's one of me in the sort of mock-up post office. There's a chap behind the counter. He's been there for years. Hundreds of years he's been standing there. Well, decades anyway. Every time I go to the museum, I go and say hello to him. He's not real, of course. And I've got a photo of me at the post office counter buying a penny black stamp because I want to post a letter to London. Penny black. Do you know what the postage is now? I don't. It's horrendous. You need to take out a mortgage to buy a stamp. The post office, I heard the other day, they're thinking of stopping deliveries on a Saturday. Have you ever heard of anything so ludicrous? Back in the old days, in Poirot, you know, Hercule Poirot, in his day, they had that, what was that, the 1930s? They had the morning post, the midday post, the afternoon post, and the evening post. And I've got an idea that was 7 days a week. Now we get one post a day if you're lucky, nothing on Sunday, and now they're thinking nothing on Saturday. Well, what's the point? I suppose there aren't as many letters. Would that be why? Because people all email now, don't they? And they video each other and things. No matter where you are in the world, you can have a video chat with someone. I remember my grandparents back in the 50s, they had friends in Australia and they'd write back and forth, these friends, with the latest news. Of course, now you just press a button on your phone and say, hello, I can see you. How you doing? What a difference. I wonder whether the day will come when there is no post. People won't mail things. Of course, in the 50s, if you wanted to phone Australia, it was something like £5 a minute. And that was back then. What's the equivalent to that? Probably about £30 a minute or more. Whereas now you just use your phone. It's not free, of course. You've got to pay your internet provider or your phone thing or whatever. But it's certainly not sort of 30, 40 or £50 a minute. I've just had a look on Find My Friends and Trisha's at the end of the road. So I shall go down to greet her, see what goodies she's bought and have a cup of coffee. I shall be back in a minute. Have a coffee yourself while you're waiting. Well, that was quite a long coffee break. It's now Saturday and it's not been raining all morning except for about 10 minutes ago, a quick shower. So hopefully that's the last of the rain. You're also hoping it's the last, aren't you? Because you're fed up with hearing about the rain. It's been every day, hasn't it? Every day. Next week, I'm going on the Waverley paddle steamer from Shoreham Harbour, round the Isle of Wight and back again. Quite a long day, but of course if it's pouring with rain and the sea's rough, well, it'll probably be cancelled. Or I suppose if it's raining and the sea's calm, we'll have to put up with it. You can go inside, you don't have to be out on deck. You can go inside. I believe there's a bar and 2 restaurants, I believe. I'm not too sure. I think that's the setup. So I'm looking forward to that, as long as the weather's all right. Going back to stories from the past, when I was, 14, 13, early teens, we used to go over the local farms. There were a lot of farms around here. And as I'm always telling you, I was over the woods more often than not. And one farm, quite a distance away, it wasn't local, but us lads, back then we didn't mind cycling on our bikes or walking miles. And there was one farm where there was this girl, late teens, and she wore dungarees whenever we saw her and Wellington boots. We assumed it was her parents' farm. And we got talking to her. We'd seen her a few times. She was very friendly and chatty. She'd explain things to us youngsters. She drove a tractor. Of course, we were impressed. A girl driving a tractor. Ooh, very sexist, you're thinking. And one day we met her mother. She said, this is my mum. And she said, these are the lads I've been telling you about. We weren't on farmland. Well, it was a farm track. I think it was a public footpath, It's not that we were trampling through cornfields and things like that. We weren't on the farm as such. And her mother was saying, I've heard about you lads. I could do with some help. You lot would be ideal. Young, fit lads like you. I'm sure you could do a few jobs round the farm. And of course we thought that was great. And we did. We often went over there doing jobs and she'd give us £0.50 each or something like that. Not heavy lifting work or anything like that. Just organising things around the farm, tidying up the yard, piling up manure. That wasn't a very nice job. Moving hay. stuff like that, loading up this cart thing with hay. I wanted to learn to drive the tractor, but no, that wasn't going to happen, which was a shame. I'd love to have driven the tractor. But what we did do, we had turns at joining the girl on the tractor when she went out ploughing or whatever she was doing with the thing. We'd leap on the back of the tractor and have a ride round the field. It was fantastic. Of course, there was no health and safety back then. These days, she'd have been arrested and we'd have been sent to Borstal. Do they have Borstal these days? Have you heard of that, Borstal? Naughty boys were sent to Borstal. I don't know where naughty girls were sent to. So it was great. And what we discovered was, very soon into our sort of friendship with the girl and her mum, her dad had died. We didn't know where or what the circumstances were, and he'd just left the farm to her and her mum. They didn't have a lot of money. They did have a couple of men come in and help do things, but they really needed someone full time, and they were both basically wearing themselves out. We did a lot, especially in the summer months. We were always as I've said, always over the woods and the fields, the farmland, and we did a lot on the farm to help them out, basically. It was great. We had tea there. We used to have tea and biscuits and cake. Her mum used to make cake, this girl's mum. It was wonderful, fruit cake. We were always in the farmhouse. It was fantastic. It was a bit like, what's that, Enid Blyton, 5 go to Devon and 5 do this. Well, in our case, I think there are only about 3 or 4 of us. 4 visit the farm, 4 have lunch in the farmhouse and homemade fruit cake. Amazing. It was a wonderful time. What was it? The famous 5, wasn't it? 5 do this and 5 go to Devon. Lashings of lemonade and ice cream. Was it lashings of ice cream and lemonade? It was just like that, the Enid Blyton setting. I'm not going to say that's what kids miss today, but they do. So I will say it. Children do miss out on that sort of thing today. There are adverts. Have you seen these adverts, or are they adverts on the telly, talking about teaching children that food doesn't just come from a shelf in the local supermarket? It comes from farms. It comes from wheat fields and things. It comes from farm animals. They think it all comes from the shelf in the local supermarket. Of course, there aren't so many farms around now, which is a shame. And what's all this about solar panels being put all over arable type land, farmland? All the farmers are up in arms, aren't they? I'm not quite sure what that's all about. I think the farmers are saying that for them to produce a pint of milk costs so much, and the supermarkets are saying, well, we're going to pay so much a pint, which is less than it costs the farmer. In some cases, it's less than it costs the farmer to produce the pint of milk, which obviously isn't sustainable, is it, on the farmer's part? And I believe, I might be wrong, I believe the government are trying to cover farmland with solar panels to produce electricity. And they're putting these windmills, they're not windmills, are they? What are they, wind turbines to generate electricity? They want to cover the countryside with those. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter about this. Farmers all up in arms because they're not allowed to grow food anymore. As they say, no farmers, no food. So I don't quite know what that's all about. I don't know what's wrong with don't know what's wrong with the government. Governments worldwide seem to be balmy, don't they? They should be locked up. They should be sent to work on the farm. That's a good idea. Send all politicians to work on farms. As I got older, of course, well into my teens, I didn't go to the farm. I found other interests. And eventually, of course, all the farmland around here is now housing estates. And some of the housing estates are built on floodplains. Would you believe it? What a good idea. Let's build 250 million houses on the floodplain. A few years later, when they're all finished, oh, that's funny, the houses are flooded. I wonder why that is. I don't know. What was it that people used to say? Give me strength. Do you remember that? Our boss at the workshop back in the 60s, he'd slap his forehead and say, ye gods. Whatever went wrong, ye gods. I don't quite know what that was about. I heard that again for the first time the other day in decades. Someone on the TV was saying, ye gods. Do you remember the other day I was talking about, or I mentioned at least, Cockney rhyming slang? Thanks for all your messages and emails about that. I've had loads of examples of that. I'm not going to read them all out because we're getting towards the end of the episode now, but thank you for that. And I've been trying to find words that we no longer use, words that have been lost in time, lost in history. And I made a list. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? I've lost the list. I spent ages writing it all out. I should have done it on the computer, really. And I lost the list of words. I will find them. I will find the list of words. That's a list of something else. That's a list of radio frequencies that you're not interested in. But I did find quite a few words. I remember some from the 50s. When you were a child, were you called a little tyke if you'd done something wrong? You little tyke, you wait till your father gets home. Then father would get home and mother would say, have a word with him or her. And he'd say, have a word, which was all silly. Little tyke and scallywag. Now, where's that come from? What does scallywag mean? I've just looked up scallywag. Here we are. Scallywag, a rascal, a deceitful and unreliable scoundrel, one who is playfully mischievous. Rascal. I remember being called a little rascal. I don't know what I'd done wrong. Something dreadful, no doubt. It says here, scallywag, someone, especially a child, who has behaved badly, but who is still liked. Monkey. Right, little monkey, it's a child, informal. Rascal. Scamp. I remember that, you little scamp. That just says old-fashioned. Tyke. Child, UK informal. It doesn't actually give the kind of etymology. I remember when I was young, my father introducing me to people he knew, adults. He'd say, this is my nipper. Nipper? Where's that come from? Nipper. I like Rugrats. That's a good term, isn't it? Rugrats on the telly. Nipper. Does that mean that I was that young, I was on the ground and I'd nip his ankles like a dog would? I don't know. It says here, synonyms of nipper: child, girl, boy, baby. Doesn't actually say what it means or where it's come from. Probably some medieval thing from hundreds of years ago. A lot of these sayings I hear these days, I heard a young lad the other day saying, oh my word, and that reminded me of my grandmother. Now, she was born in 1900. She used to say that, oh my word. And this lad, he could have been no more than 12. He was saying that. That was down the road somewhere. He was on his bike with some friends and I don't know what it was about, but oh my word. And on the telly, I've heard people say, wind your neck in. That was used in the 50s, the 60s, wind your neck in. So quite a few of these sayings and expressions are still around today, but you don't hear them very often. Another one from the 60s was you'd ask someone something and they'd say, who wants to know? Wind your neck in, who wants to know? Something else I heard on a very old film the other day, old black and white film. Someone said, flash the ash. Who knows what that means? Flash the ash. You probably only know what that means if you're getting on in years. Is that being rude, getting on in years? No, if you're mature, put it that way. If you're mature, it means flash the cigarettes. Give me a cigarette, flash the ash. That was used a lot in the 60s when everybody smoked, or just about everybody. In the pub, there was always a scrounger. You'd get your cigarettes out and perhaps offer them around if there were only a few of you, not if there's like 20 of you. You'd offer your cigarettes around. Oh, thanks, he'd say. Everyone did it. You'd offer the cigarettes around. He never did. He always took, but never gave. So what we started doing was we'd have 2 packets of cigarettes in our pocket. One was virtually full up, and the other one would only have 1 cigarette in it. So he would say, oh, flash the ash. You'd open your cigarette packet. Oh, sorry, I've only got the 1 left. And of course, then you'd slip another one in that packet. So if anyone else said, flash the ash, oh, it's the last one, sorry. And of course, then everyone started doing that. Everyone only had 1 cigarette, but they spend the entire evening in the pub smoking about 10. So, I don't know. Happy days. Then there's the other type of scrounger in the pub. There was this chap called Ken. I won't tell you what his nickname was because it's rude. He was funny. He was old. He's gone now, sadly. But he'd say, let me buy you a drink, Ray. No, I'm fine, Ken. No, get Ray a half. So he'd buy me half a pint of something. And then when I'd finished that, you're round, Ray, I'll have a large scotch. A large scotch, My half a pint of whatever cost a fraction of the price of a large scotch. So I'd say, no, you don't want that, Ken. Get Ken a half. So I don't want a half. Oh, well, that's what you bought me. That's only fair. I'll buy you a half. He was a scrounging devil. Always after other people's cigarettes, buying people a half, then asking for a scotch. He never, as far as I was aware, he never had a large scotch. No one ever bought him anything other than the half that he'd bought them. Then there's another chap I knew. We'd go into the pub, perhaps 6 of us. We'd go into the pub. First one up to the bar would say, right, what are you having, lads? And we'd take it in turns to buy the round. This one chap, he always made sure he went into the pub last. He'd follow us 5 in there. He'd nip into the toilet or just be a bit slow. Of course, when it came to his round, most people had had enough. They didn't want any more. And he'd say, oh, well, I'd get a couple of halves then. He always did this. He'd wait until the end when it was his round and people didn't want any more. So what we started doing was whenever we went in as a group, we'd stand at the bar and wait for him. He'd go into the toilet or he'd be procrastinating, there's a word. And we'd say, come on, Bill. I remember his name, Bill. Come on, Bill. Get them in. And he had no choice. It was his first round. So I don't know what it is with these people. A friend of my dad's was always on the scrounge. Can I borrow some? Have you got any white emulsion? I need some white emulsion. Just got a little bit to finish. Just run out. I don't have to buy a whole new pot. So my dad would say, yeah, okay, yeah, there you go. Just take a bit out of that one. He'd get the pot back half empty and the chap had watered it down. He'd poured water in it to water down the emulsion. And of course it was then useless. It wouldn't cover anything. He was always doing things like that. Trish and I don't do rounds. If we all go out for a meal somewhere, we don't do rounds. 1 or 2 people that we know do, but I won't. I don't want to get involved. Because you get one chap, he's on scotch, he's on the whiskey. I might just have a couple of beers, or sometimes I'm driving, so I just have a couple of soft drinks. He's knocking back the whiskey, and then we have to buy rounds. It's all daft. I don't like it. Someone who shall remain nameless from the past, we'd go into a pub, and he'd say, Ray's getting them in. And he'd look at me. He'd just sort of look at me. And I'd say, no, I'm not. Yeah, come on, you never buy a round. Come on, you get them in. And I'd say to him, I'm not doing rounds. I never do rounds. I don't do it. So that's the end of that. And he'd be moaning, oh, never gets a round. It's just so unfair. Also, you go out for, well, I won't go on about it anymore, but there's something else that used to happen. You'd have the meal. You'd go out with friends and have the meal. They'd have these afters, these pudding things. Someone would have a little pudding, which was like £6. Say a little pudding, it's all it was. 1 scoop of ice cream or 2, or just the one. Oh, that's just £10 then instead of 20. What a rip-off. And someone else wouldn't have a pudding. And then when it came to dividing the meal between however many, say 4, oh yeah, well you had a pudding. Yes, and you had a whole bottle of wine. I've had a glass of Coke. And all this stuff goes on. I hate it all. I don't like people. As you know, I don't like people. I'd rather live in the woods with the animals. I like you. You know I like you. I love talking to you. It's great. I look forward to every week's midweek message and every Sunday's extended podcast. Where are we now? 53 minutes. I won't bore you anymore. Lovely to talk to you. Email me if you want, raisrants@protonmail.com. Have a look at the website. I put the pictures on of Amberley, raisrants.info. Have a look there. Thanks for all your messages, emails. Thanks for the photos. Some of you send me photos. They're lovely. Thank you very much. I shall see you on Wednesday with a midweek message. Friday, I'm on the Waverley paddle steamer. Next weekend, Trish is at Butlins. I shall sail past Bognor on the way to the Isle of Wight, and I shall wave. I hate Butlins. You know that, don't you? I'm not keen on the sea, but it'll be good going on a paddle steamer. I don't think I've been on a paddle steamer before. Behave yourself. Don't be bad. If you are, don't get caught. I will see you on Sunday. Lovely talking to you as always. Bye-bye for now.